IVM.
Hey everybody, as you know, we're taking a short break right now for new episodes of Shunya One. What we do have is we're playing back some of our favorite episodes from our first year. The episode we're going to play for you this week is Zishaan Hayath. Zishaan is the founder of Topper. He's a pioneer in the educational tech space and was one of the early guys who worked out of Powai and founded, I guess, or was a key contributor to the Powai Valley ecosystem, if you will. It's a really interesting conversation we had with him. We went in a lot of different directions. I think you'll enjoy this. And let's go with it.
So today we have Zishaan Hayath, the co-founder at Topper.com, which is obviously a comprehensive learning app for the classes 5th through 12th. But he's also been an angel investor in startups in the past. And obviously he started his journey when he co-founded Chowpatty Bazaar, which was then acquired by Future Bazaar. And yes, a long time, I would say, component of the Indian startup ecosystem, more specifically the Bombay one. Which we all talk about here because we wonder if it's still even around or going to be around. So welcome to the show, Zishaan.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, you can find him on Twitter at Zishaan.
That's right.
Yeah.
First name. You got first name?
Yeah.
Nice.
Exactly. So old startup ecosystem, from that.
Yeah, my Gmail ID is also first name at Gmail.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
So that's a score.
That's a score too.
Hey, I got that too. I in fact added .m just because I wasn't thinking so smart.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Man. I wish my name wasn't as common as Amit because I'm never getting Amit for anything.
Oh.
But hey, welcome to the show and thanks so much for doing this. So I just gave you the introduction, but can you tell me a little more about the early days of running a startup way back when?
Sure, yeah. So, I finished college in 2005 and then I worked for 3 years and quit my job to start up in 2008. And I think those were really the days to start up.
Yeah.
Starting up was scary in 2008. Yeah. But I don't know why I was so foolish to start up back then. At some point I said, startup is a bad idea. I would never do a startup again. This was like 2010-ish, 11-ish, when things were really tough. I said, if I get out of the startup clean, I will never ever come back and do a startup ever again. But you never say never, right?
Yeah.
So first 5 years spent building Chowpatty and then getting acquired by Future Bazaar and then working at Future Bazaar to build the digital arm of Future Group. And then moved out and started Topper in 2013 and have been at it for the last almost 5 years now.
And you've just raised your latest round of funding, so congratulations on that.
Thank you. We've just raised our third round of funding.
Yeah.
But no, this is great. I've never had so much fun building a product. We are almost 5 years old now, but it feels just like yesterday. It's incredible what tech can do to learning. And we are ourselves, we think of the product, but we are ourselves amazed what tech can do to learning. And each day we discover that there's so much more to do. It's just incredible.
Right. So I'm going to come back to obviously going deep into ed tech as the buzzword goes.
We always
but I want to just take up a note on your early years because since you mentioned, like I was also saying, you were part of the earliest people to start up in this country and in Mumbai.
Yeah.
And pretty much the ecosystem didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
And yet you had an exit within 3 years, which is to some people even unheard of today. So how was that? I mean, how did that all play around? And then you did a bit of angel investing yourself. So I mean, you've been through a lot of...
Yeah, so it was it was a great run. So it was a great journey. So I think I was pretty foolish to start up back then. When I think of 2008 as a starting up year, I would say it was a pretty tough year. And, if you look at the quality of entrepreneurs that have survived that starting year, they are really top notch. So the Flipkarts and the Paytms are all from that time, right? So
exactly.
if you're still around, then you really have to be top notch.
Exactly.
So we were not lucky enough to survive the last 10 years. We had to exit within 3, which was a good outcome, but still not what we aspired to build. So, and at some point during my, run as in the first company, I also promised myself that I would never come back and do a startup ever again. Yeah. But here I am building my second company, so you know, never say never. So so we exited 3 years later to Future Group and started working at Future Group. And at the same time, I also started angel investing a bit, mostly because, you know, after our exit, a lot of younger founders from my college started reaching out. And, you know, mostly for product advice or tech advice or some startup advice, you know, there was a lot of interactions that were happening between the hostel juniors, college juniors who wanted to start up and, you know, me and a bunch of our friends. And at the same time, we felt that, you know, they were struggling to raise small checks, and the struggle to raise your first check shouldn't be so high. Mm-hmm. And, you know, these checks were as small as 40, 50, 60 lakh rupee checks. So we felt that it could be there should be a faster way to do this. Right. And that's how I started writing my first few checks. And it like more people joined in and it got bigger. So.
Right. And you famously founded the Powai Valley.
Yeah. So, you know, I just registered a page called Powai Lake Ventures and put like a few paragraphs of text, and it just became like.
And that's what it was.
It still is, right? It was essentially a mailing list of my friends who wanted to write checks, and I put a page so that it's easier for founders to reach us. Mm-hmm. So it had a brief description of what we wanted to do, and like 2 email IDs, one for the founders, one for the angels.
Right. But you did have some really interesting early successes from that as well.
Yeah, I mean, huge beginner's luck. So my first company was Ola. Can't repeat Ola again. Right. And my second company was housing. And, you know, although housing had a great run and did not finish where it should have, but because we were the first investors into housing, we still made like a decent exit.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously then I think you're singularly in charge of coining the Powai Valley ecosystem now, I would say. Yeah.
Actually, that name, Powai Valley name, was given by Times of India journalist Samita Sharma.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really? You must ask her about it.
Yeah, so she came looking for startups, and then, you know, she walked into... We used to work out of my apartment, and then she walked into Topper office and saw that, oh, this is an apartment, actually. And, you know, in that apartment, she coined the word, you know, this is Powai Valleys.
Yeah, well, and we saw, and I remember that article, there were photos of all the guys in Powai who were based out of Powai, including housing. And including,
so there were a bunch of startups,
Yeah, before Ola even moved out.
Yeah.
So those
Ola
were
was there. Yeah, Ola was in Powai. Wow, can't even. Yeah.
You can't relate to it today.
Relate to it today, right? Ola is so Bangalore today that can't even relate that Ola was in Powai.
Yes. Yeah. I remember meeting you at that point, and I think you were just fresh off the Ola investment or exit or whichever. And I remember with Zishaan having this conversation about how he didn't own a car back then. And he said that I don't think I'll ever own a car because I am an Ola investor. And I know he stuck to that as long as he could.
I gave in and bought a car. I bought a Polo like last year. So
yeah, exactly. So you really stuck to it. So that's good resolve.
Yeah.
That's good resolve. So I think as far as angel investors go in terms of faith in their investee companies, that's a good show.
Yeah, it is.
But all right, great. So obviously that means you've sort of seen both sides of the table when it comes to being an entrepreneur, exiting as well as being an angel, and you know, seeing that in other founders. And since you mentioned even a company like housing, which didn't go where it was supposed to go, you've actually seen a lot of the ecosystem move out of Bombay, in fact. Yet obviously since you're here, you've started up again here. And I think now finally, do you think we're seeing some reversal in that flow of talent into Bombay? So
first of all, Bombay is an extremely tough place to start up. It's not easy to pay rent in Bombay. It's not easy to find commercial space in Bombay to build an office, all of that, right? And it's also not easy to find large amount of tech talent in Bombay. So that way, Bombay is a tough place. But hidden beneath all this, you know, difficulty is also like Bombay is a high retention place, very low churn place, you know, so your employees stick with you for very, you know, longer tenures. So if you are a company that wants to build like a smaller team And if your small team is sufficient to build your complete product, then Bombay is a great place to start up.
So then that should attract a lot of small hardcore
I would say a lot
companies.
of hardcore product companies who will cap out at 150 people tops in their head office. It's a great place to start. Like a lot of B2B SaaS companies who can build the product in less than 50 people or less than 100 people. A lot of pure play product companies.
Who don't need so much ops maybe, who don't need so much large scale various tech teams.
So,
No, I mean, I completely believe you. We have this banter about...
Bombay versus Bangalore.
And would you ever consider... Have you ever considered moving Topper to Bangalore?
No. Never, No, because we've always been like, today we are 100 people in Bombay, so we've never had the requirement of hiring 30 engineers in one go or 40 engineers in one go. Our requirement is 5 engineers at a time.
Right.
So we've like been cocooned here.
Yeah.
And, like, come on, somebody has to hold the fort also, like if you move.
Of course.
Yeah, we are like holding the fort in Bombay.
Yeah, no, and I mean, it's, there a lot of business happens over here, right? So I mean, like, though the technology ecosystem happens over there, there's still space for stuff to happen over here. I don't feel like, it has to be an either or proposition in that sense.
No, and my position is that it's actually a good place for tech to come back to.
I think so.
Yeah. And I think if you're 100 people in Powai, and there are many more. There are still other.
There are like a bunch of companies, of tech companies like WebEngage.
They're all around still.
BrowserStack.
So I'm sure that means there is a hope that more will come back.
I would hope so too. Yeah. I think so. I mean, like, to me, it just makes there's so much finance, there's so much entertainment, and all these things are completely interlinked with tech, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, there's so much of this stuff happening over here that for tech companies to say, no, we're going to be in Bangalore only, it does, I mean, like, it depends on what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Not everything, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Not everything is a nail, actually. But I mean, like, in this case, I feel like, the possibilities of companies doing interesting things over here they're different interesting things than what you would do in Bangalore.
Yeah. And in particular in our case, we needed access to IIT ecosystem for the education part of our product. Yeah. And, if at all, our second option would have been Delhi and not really Bangalore, because there's no IIT Bangalore.
Yeah, exactly. So
it just depends, which industry you're in. Like, so if you're in music or media or
exactly.
Like finance,
for us, we need to be here.
Yeah, you want to be in Bombay.
Yeah. No, so great. I think that's something which I'm hopefully very proud of, and we'll see more companies.
I'm sure we will. I mean, like, especially, so I mean, like, it depends on how tightly I think you define technology, right? I mean, like, if you start looking at digital entertainment as a form of technology, I mean, that stuff is almost all happening over here, and there's like massive amounts of stuff happening over here in that space, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's music or video or whatever it is. If you start looking at fintech, all that stuff is at least starting over here. Right. Then they might have to, at some point, when they need to get to that 500,000 engineer count, then at that point they might need to move. But at least they're starting up over here, because this is where the customers are.
Yeah.
So just I have another point to make about your early days. Since, like you said, you exited to Future Group, right? Which is a big enterprise, giant, old school company, as they say.
Yeah.
And you can say that now, I'm sure.
I can.
And they've not been known for many years to really been in startup acquiring mode.
Yeah.
Were they the only acquisition they did with you guys, or have they done more, or and similarly, like, what's your take on more stuff like that happening more often?
Yeah,
because I don't think it has.
Yeah. So when we got acquired by Future Group was a 10,000 crore company, and that's like $2 billion at that exchange rate, and Flipkart was at a 24 crore run rate.
Wow.
24 crores was 10,000. Like, Flipkart's yearly sale was less than 1/10 their daily sale.
Wow.
Okay.
That was a size, right?
Right.
So I think it's a DNA difference, right? You're built to be a retailer. You think real estate, you think space, you think branding, and then you think warehousing in a different way. And a technology play thinks all of these things in a very, very different way, right? You think app distribution, DAU, MAU, engagement, and then transaction, and then repeats.
Yeah.
So just different DNAs, So Future Group, I think they tried their hand on tech, but I don't think they carried enough conviction into that, and did not really, obviously paid the price also in long term.
Yeah.
But that's also, it's a repeat story. I mean, that's true with Walmart and Amazon also, right? It's not like Walmart didn't see Amazon coming and couldn't do it.
True, but I mean, in specific to the context of what happened with you guys, I mean, after that, they, like you said, they haven't been in that mode of working with startups or acquiring startups, and not just them. I'm talking about them and their brethren, right?
Yeah, so I think Indian corporates have been very, very late to the startup. I mean, you barely see any investments from Indian corporates into tech. You know, there's a little bit here and there. Right? Mahindra will do something with Ola, a little bit on the side, on the periphery. But there's no, let's go all in. Let's go with 20%
there's no
of
acquisitions for sure.
There's no acquisitions for sure. There's no, let's go with 10% or 20% of our force with into tech. Like nothing on that scale. Right? So it's very, very meager, small.
Yeah, so and that I don't see that changing overnight either. I mean, it's something.
So that leaves the field only to founders and investors, right? So venture investors and founders have to build everything on their own.
Right. Yeah. And that I think that anyway that ecosystem built post 2011-12.
That ecosystem really kicked off post 2011.
Yes. Yeah. And that's when the VC money. That's when VC money even became the most sought after option for a growing startup.
11 was a tipping point for the present run.
Yes.
Yeah. 16 was a dip. 11 was the tipping point, and then.
Yeah, I think so. 11 onwards, the story has been different, and pre-11, like you were when you had done your initial startup, I think that was still a small business.
Yeah,
it wasn't. Did you even call yourself a startup?
You know, we called ourselves a startup, but like my parents or family didn't understand what a startup meant.
Yeah, exactly. No, and just to understand about your so far experience with angel investing, since we in previous shows we've had angel investors also and talk about and that's also become a more prolific component of the ecosystem. You were early even in that, right? And again, like you said, you explained how it was mostly friends and friends of friends and so on. But what's your take on that as a
So now I think I'm like after about 25, 30 investments, I'm wiser for sure. But you only learn after you try it out, right? If you don't try it out, you never know what would have happened. So in hindsight, I would have probably done 15 instead of 25. So like obviously I've made some bad investments and lost money. I think my first initial 6 or 7 investments, which are still around, all of them, were great because I stuck to first principles, like stuck with people I really knew. I had a lot of data on them, really believed in the product, and was really, the money didn't come easy to them or to the pool. I think the middle investments were slightly flimsy. I think we started expanding the breadth or relaxing a few variables. My last few investments again have been like back to first principles. So overall, I think it's been a great journey. But you know, I've in the last 1.5, 2 years, I've really not had the time to do any of the angel stuff. All my angel is from the 2010 to 14, 15ish time frame. I've not had the time to look at any angel investments in the last 2 years, but I still hold a bunch of companies that are still around.
Nice, and I'm sure. I mean, there will be more of them, which will.
If I make a lot of money in Topper, sure there'll be more.
No, that's great. So I think on that note, we can take a quick break and come back and talk some more about EdTech and Topper.com.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another awesome week on IVM Podcast. If you aren't following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. On Instagram, we've been doing an interesting thing recently. What we're trying to do is whenever a listener is listening, they take a screenshot of what they're listening to, they make a comment, and they tag us on it. And we're reposting that on all of our stories. So, I mean, like, if you want to get on our feed, then please do tag us. And otherwise, if you want to see what other people are listening, then go and check out the Instagram account and you can take a look at that. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by Revati Roy. She takes Cyrus through her entrepreneurial journey and her fondness for cars and driving. On Pulyabazi, the host discussed how the US reached the position of a world leader and what are the odds of China replicating that feat. Speaking of Pulyabazi, they were also featured in the Scroll magazine article talking about how English-speaking urbanites are interested in listening to content in Hindi languages. Check out the article on our Instagram highlights section. On IVM Likes, comedian Supriya Joshi joins the IVM gang to talk about pop culture they consume in non-English languages. Last week, we launched a brand new Hindi podcast called Cinemaya. It's hosted by Swati Bakshi, and our first guest is Nandita Das. She discusses her journey as a woman filmmaker in a male-dominated industry. And with that, let's continue on with your show.
Hey, so welcome back, guys. And we were talking about how your journey so far has led you to build Topper.com into what it is today. And you actually mentioned that it's now almost 5 years that you've been building this.
Yeah.
Even though most of us would have heard about it in the last couple of years, maybe.
Yeah.
Since it's become a large platform.
Yeah. So I think Topper really took off in the last couple of years. But I think a lot of work went in the initial years also, right? For the first 1.5 years, it was just 4 of us building the platform from my apartment. And, to keep the costs low and to give us a long runway, we kept it very lean, very low cost, but kept writing very high quality code for a very long time, right? So 4 people, 1.5 years, because the minimum viable product in this case was not small or flimsy, right? It was a large MVP, because the students will not commit to a product unless it is completely meaningful to them and comprehensive to them, right? So they just can't pick up something which is very half-baked or very thin use case and commit to using it. They'll be like, I'll either go with this or I'll go with a book, or I'll go to a coaching class. So they need that commitment to subscribe before.
And this is one of the things unique to this edtech space which you're in as well.
I would say it is unique to high trust products.
I don't even know if it's necessarily unique. I think it is something that you have to analyze which industry you're in, and then based on that make a determination of what your product needs to be at the point of launch.
I would say MVPs will vary by industry a lot, right? So if it's a high trust category industry, then you really need to build all the trust before you launch the product.
Exactly. Like a financial services product, right? You can't screw around with that. If you're asking people for financial data, that has to be.
Yeah, your Bitcoin product can't be like, oh shit, we lost some Bitcoin.
Oh man, that would have been 2011 was a good year to buy Bitcoins as well. Now that you mention it, I knew I should have.
Let's not talk about that.
Let's not go there. But okay, coming back to education, right? So you said it's a high trust category. It's been a category which has been of interest for decades. As a business, as an entrepreneur, and coaching classes are still the biggest businesses you hear of, even though and I'm sure people have made tons of money out of them. And so education in general, it seems like this evergreen sector, right? It probably is. There's so much to be done.
So education is the second highest spend category of a household, right? The first highest is rent or home EMI. It's higher than your grocery bill, it's higher than your consumption bill, it's higher than your utility bill, it's higher than everything else except rent. And if you notice, there is a very small phase of about 6-7 years when you're not spending on education. So after between 23 to 31 is when you're not spending on education. Otherwise, you're always spending on education, right?
So it's either your own or your children's.
Your own or your children, right? So you're always spending on education.
And if you have student loans, even you're spending.
You probably, if you get an US MBA, probably spending forever.
Throughout,
And if you look at the education system around us, right? So in Bombay, kindergarten schools start at a few lakh rupees a year and go up all the way up to 5 lakh rupees a year.
Do not scare me, man.
This is for a kindergarten student. And after paying, you're the customer here who's paying 5 lakh rupees, but the product you get is high. There's no access to the product. You get selected to pay. Right. It's an honor that you get that you are able to pay 5 lakh rupees. And then something goes wrong, you're scolded. You're the customer here, and then you're called to the product, and the product scolds you that your child is not performing well. So this is bizarre. So I think there's a lot we can do with learning overall on a very, very broad level with tech, right? So technology can personalize learning. No two children are
the same, yes.
Even two twins are different.
Right.
So no parent will say, hey, both my kids are same. There's a lot of personalization that you can do. There's across India. So by the way, India is the largest school population in the world. So we are 400 million school children. Wow. China is 250 million school children. US is 30-40 million school children. Yeah, US is a 300 million country.
This is assuming every one of our kids go to school, or this is actually the ones which do?
So 400 million school-age children, of which about 250 are probably enrolled in schools.
Wow.
So there's a lot of children who are not enrolled or drop out very early, all of that. But what tech can do here, right? So it can make it, it can personalize it highly, create a high access, create very low price products or like medium price products, create a product that is highest quality for the first user in the line as well as the last user in the line, right? The same consistent quality for all users. The biggest problem with coaching class today is you have 20 sections. Your best students go to the best top 2 sections. Your best teachers go to the top 2 sections. So students who don't need the help, who are self-motivated, who are anyways going to get the best teachers.
The best teachers,
The worst students who actually need the help get the worst teachers. And the weak students actually subsidize everyone else, because the best students always get scholarships and fee cuts and all of that and rebates. So they are actually being subsidized by students who actually need help and don't get the help. So it's like completely broken.
Yeah. No, so I mean, obviously we know the system is broken, as we say, right? I mean, all of us who have even been through it and who have been privileged enough to have completed education in India, I still say the system is broken. I think the first experience, like you mentioned, if you do go for any sort of studies abroad, you realize just how backward your learning methodologies even have been. So, and even worse as it goes down the years, the younger you are. So, clearly there is a model which tech can solve, and we all know this. But it's also been one of those sectors which have the toughest incumbents or the toughest things to break into, right? And I think it harks back to the fact of trust, which you were saying.
Yeah, so I think a bunch of things are coming together now. One, we've had tech around for a bit, but the internet connections and the phones, the penetration of phones was not really that great, right? I mean, not until very recently have we had really high-powered smartphones that can do the kind of computing that is required for a very easy usage, right? So it's only been in the last 2-3, I'd say maximum 4 years when we've had reasonably priced phones that can actually do the computing that you need.
Right.
Also, I'd say it's only in the last 1 or 2 years when we've seen video speeds become like, if you want to watch a 1 hour video, now you can actually watch it, right? Imagine watching a 1 hour video 2 years ago on a phone. Was not really that easy.
Yeah, 3G was not, for sure.
Even 3G.
Yeah, even 3G was like, okay.
I mean, like not a long video. You could watch the short 2-minute YouTubers. But if you want to watch anything long...
And like a class lecture is at least 20 minutes. Right? So I'd say it's just coming together. That's one. The other thing is, I think the younger generation is these are all digital natives, right? These are like, they don't know a computer without internet connection.
Right.
They'll be like, what is this box without internet connection? So, in fact, they'll go touch the TV, assuming it'll just like work like a touch screen. So, I think these guys are moving away from books and want something very...
more interactive.
Yeah, more interactive, more personal, in their own space, in their own time.
No, I mean, that's obviously the change in the audience, I would say, which has happened. But like I was mentioning, education in general has been a sector, while being lucrative all this while, and just the reference again to the coaching classes concept, right? Parents knowing that the school is not teaching my kid will spend double the money and send them to coaching classes. So the trust has always been in this other human, or in this other very human aspect of education, right? So, it's, if not the school teacher, the classes teacher.
So this education is so important that we are not willing to risk it at all.
Exactly.
Right? So it is so important that you just can't say, hey, I'm going to try something out. And the incumbents who've actually built initially the trust are protecting it very strongly. They design classes which run so long that you barely have any time outside of it to do anything.
So is that a strategy?
It's a strategy, right? There's no cell phones allowed in most integrated coaching classes. So integrated coaching classes that do school plus coaching, they don't allow cell phones inside the campus at all. So that you have like maybe like a half an hour cell phone time.
It sucks to be a kid right now.
That half an hour, you're really not going to look up more studies.
I mean, like, then you're not competing with the coaching class. You're competing with WhatsApp and Snapchat.
Exactly.
Man, but so coming to what you're building at Topper today, you've said you've spent 1.5 years building the MVP. So what was the thought process then, and what's the evolution been of the product since till date?
Sure. So I think our core word is personalization. So we want to build an adaptive path for each child as they navigate through the course. So at the start of the course, they set what they want to learn, right? So if you're a 9th standard student, you can say, hey, 9th standard, CBSE, these are my subjects. Additionally, I want to prepare for Olympiad or NTSE or whatever, right? So you set your course. And we create one course in the app that covers it. These are a bunch of courses, but most of it is overlapping. So we create one overlapping course that covers everything. And then we set you out on a path. After that, we take control and then we create a path for you that is best suited for you.
Okay.
Right? So the fastest students can actually answer questions rapidly and move to the end point very quickly. They don't get frustrated. The slow students have as much help and time as they need to clear a course. So unlike a book which is very linear, or unlike a class which is very linear, here you can actually hop and skip to get to an endpoint faster or slower depending on your pace. So it's constantly moving back and forth. And the beauty is, every time somebody touches the topper system, we generate like about 100 data points around that, right? So what time of the day of the week, what device, did you get it right or wrong? Did your friends get it right or wrong? How was your accuracy streak coming into it? How's your accuracy going out of it? How much time did you spend on this? Was it a silly mistake? Was it a conceptual error? Like there's a bunch of data on every single attempt, right? So this is like I'm talking about a 60-second interaction.
Right.
And we're generating like 100 data points. And so far we've had 120 million attempts on Topper.
Wow.
Right? So that's the amount of data that we have to customize your path. I mean, you don't have to see any of it. It's all working in the background, right? So it's all working in the background. But what you experience is like a mini magic show for yourself, right? So you just get the exact right question that should come to you next.
Interesting.
Right? So you make a few mistakes and then you feel like, hey, I want to try that question, and that's the exact question that pops up next. That's magic, right? So, or there's a recommendation which says, do you want to watch this video because, you're not doing that great in this particular area. So it matches all the mistakes that you made and then fetches the best video for that. So it's a very adaptive journey and students kind of enjoy it. They spend a lot of time on Topper. So our average time spent per day is 100 minutes.
Wow,
for an internet product, 100 minutes per day
that's insane.
Is insane, right? So like Facebook, which is the most addictive product, has probably 45, 50, 60 minutes. And Facebook is Facebook, right?
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. 100 minutes?
Yeah,
that's crazy, man.
Twitter will be at like 5-10 minutes.
I doubt it would even be that.
YouTube will be 15 minutes. Google Plus will be like 30 seconds.
30 seconds?
I think it's
generous.
No, so, I mean, all of this is built on obviously the fact that the product has evolved to what it is today, but it has fundamentally always been around testing, right?
It's comprehensive. It's full learning. So there are 3 core modules. There's a learn module which has video lectures and practice questions baked in. So it's like you can't separate them out. So you have to watch video lectures and you have to practice questions simultaneously. Then there is a testing part, which is a published calendar of tests, about 30 tests per year, 1 test every fortnight, and compare yourself against everybody in India.
These are from your own data bank or from standard ones? Or?
No, so we create we sort of hand create every test. Because we only have to create 30 tests per year for one course. We do a base template and then we hand create so that it matches exactly like a real test. And then there is doubts which you can ask on chat 24/7. And this is the most beautiful part, right? So you can actually just pick up the phone and chat with a tutor. This is a real tutor sitting on the other side who's answering your questions. So you can post a pic and all of that. The thing is, a lot of students never ask doubts in class because they don't have the confidence to ask doubts.
Yes.
They look stupid, right? So, and they don't want to look stupid.
Yeah.
You don't want to ask silly doubts.
Yeah.
And here you ask the silliest doubts because it's okay to ask doubts.
Yeah, and it's one-on-one.
It's one-on-one.
It's one-on-one, it's private. Nobody knows what you're doing.
Yeah, and there are a lot of students who don't ask doubts because, they can't hear clearly.
Yeah, practically.
There are students who can't take paper tests because, they want to mark B, but their hand actually marks C because they are dyslexic. So, so many things. And a CBT, a computer-based test, actually overcomes so many use cases that we didn't even build for. We never built for these use cases. We didn't build for confidence. We didn't build for hearing problems. We didn't build for dyslexia. But tech,
helps you solve this.
Unknowingly solves for these problems, which is just beautiful.
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, obviously, I remember I was going to ask you that, are you adding a stories feature to Topper.com as well? Because you're pretty much throwing everything at it. And that's the latest flavor of the season. But it is true, right? These are these new methods of interaction which you use in your product are what give you the insight on what tech can do for this space.
Absolutely.
And now, while building this again, you would have understood what was out there. And computer-based testing, while new to India, I think has not been new internationally, right?
It's not new. It's like 20 years old, right?
Exactly.
GMATs have all been computer-based.
Yeah. And they've all been a little adaptive and
I think I was the last person to give the SAT on paper in India. No joke, seriously. In 93, I gave the SAT on paper. I think from the next year onwards.
That's 93.
Yeah, it was going to be computerized.
Yeah, so it has been computerized worldwide for a while now.
Yeah.
In India, I don't think it still is. None of the tests, the official exams are still.
All tests are now online.
Now they are. I think
they are online.
Yeah, even I also graduated in 2005. There was nothing.
Most
online.
tests are online with the option to take offline. But I think there's a deadline for all tests to go online 100%. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like JE will be online 100%. There's a deadline. There's a 1, 2, 3 deadlines.
They are all right now. They're still even fill in the right circle, and it's computer scanned.
Yeah, they've been computer scanned for a while now. Actually.
Yeah, computer scanned for a while. That has always been there.
Yeah.
But taking them online.
Taking them online. Yeah, it's happening, and it will be within 5 years. You will not find any paper tests anymore.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be, right? I mean, so what you're building sort of leads into that. Leads into
that also, right? So that way the timing is right. So 5 years ago, if you started building a online learning platform, people would be like, hey, I still take paper tests. Why should I learn online?
Correct. Exactly. So that also timing has had to...
Timing is also important. Yeah.
No, and coming back to, again, EdTech space, right? We say there's so much which can be done and so much to do, and the way you learn is fundamentally broken in the classroom, like you said.
Yeah.
What do you see is beyond the 100 data points and beyond the current set of features that you're looking at, where do you see the impact of these sort of new platforms such as Topper and all the others?
So I think the impact
changing the way we learn.
The impact is threefold, right? So first is access. Once you're in a higher grade, good quality education is limited to centers like Hyderabad, Kota, Delhi, Bombay. If you go 50 kilometers out of Bombay, you're not going to find a decent coaching
teacher,
class.
You mean?
Or a teacher.
You mean after 10th standard or earlier than that?
9th, 10th, 11th, 12th.
Even at that point, it becomes...
So if you're lucky to be in a great school, then that's it. But like if you want help outside of school, you don't have any help outside of school.
Right.
And not everyone is in a great school, right? Because you got enrolled into a school when you were 3.
Yep.
And you know the access to schools also. So it can't determine... So you definitely need supplement help in Indian school system, and supplement help is also concentrated in cities. So access is a big problem. Somebody in Varanasi is not having the same access as Delhi boys.
Yeah.
The second is, even if you have access, it is very expensive.
Yeah.
Like small private tuitions are 5,000 rupees a month. Coaching classes are starting at 50 to 60,000 rupees a year, going all the way up to 3 lakh rupees a year.
Wow. Yes, I know.
Yeah. So access is tough. Cost structure is tough, and then after paying the money also you still don't get the quality, right? So it's discriminatory. It's like reverse bubble sort. The paying students get sorted to the bottom who actually need help and get the worst teachers. So I think the tech is solving for all of those in a beautiful way. Also, comprehensiveness is very important in our product, right? So there's 30 boards running 30 different syllabus.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
even
I mean,
today?
like CBSE, ICSE, and then every state board.
I didn't know it was 30.
Well, I mean, like it's states and then...
Every state has a board.
States, yes.
All the states have a board.
Yeah.
And there is a different board for...
Obviously, the postgrad.
Lower grade, and there is a different board for higher secondary or 11th and 12th, all of that. So it's very complex. And if you're preparing for, let's say, 3 different entrance exams, let's say IIT and then BITS, and maybe you want to prepare for SAT also. So these are like 5 different courses. So being comprehensive is very important for a tech product. So, we've spent a lot of time building that, right? So if we start fragmenting students based on what course you want to learn, then very quickly the 100 students will get divided into 10 groups of 10 students each.
Yes.
Right? And each student anyways needs to have a unique path. So we can't duplicate content, we can't fragment users, because then it'll lose all the value of the products, right? So our biggest challenge has been to build a product where we don't duplicate content and we don't fragment students into different sets. We keep the same uniform thing, yet you're able to access only what you want to access.
And it's a personalized journey for
And
each.
it's a personalized journey. So, I mean, that's the engineering challenge in the background. How do you build for a 9th standard student that is very, very different from another 9th standard student? Yet, you're able to benefit from each other's progress and are able to compare each other's scores and are able to recommend good questions based on how others are doing.
How do you do that? Do you use machine learning kind of systems?
There's a lot of algo in the background, right?
Okay.
So what we have is we have 2 million registered users.
Okay.
And we have 1 million learning pieces in the system. So imagine a massive matrix of 2 million rows and 1 million columns.
Right.
Now each cell is your probability of getting that particular learning item right or wrong.
Okay.
So every time a student actually gets that learning item right or wrong, the cell moves from 0 or 1.
Right.
It's pre-populated with some probability, and then moves to 0 and 1. And every time this system changes, it's like 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, and all the rows and columns change based on your input.
Okay.
Because if you keep getting ones, I want to update all your probabilities to closer to 1.
Right, correct.
Wow, okay.
Right, and so your row changes, also the column changes, because if it's an easy question, I want to change others' probability also to closer to 1, right? So every time it touches, the entire matrix updates. And between 2 touches, you have 2 different copies of that matrix.
Right.
And the deltas actually tell me where you should move next. Because the delta is the change in probability, right? And I want to maximize your probability of getting the next question right.
Oh, okay, that's...
So that's actually, I would guess that's how most adaptive test, I mean, it may not be in so much detail and so many factors being taken into accordance, but most of them are like that. Based on the last thing you did.
You see what happens next.
And what most people did at this point, there will be a journey which changes.
And the more data you have, the more powerful it becomes, right?
True.
And the more simultaneous data, however you can slice and dice that data, the more data concepts you have. No, so coming back to what you were saying, this is still in the domain of supplementary education. I mean, I'm just going a little off here from what the core product is, but just to ask you, do you ever see this being even moving to a primary form of education?
So, when I say supplemental, I mean it's supplemental to school.
Exactly, yes.
And even the coaching classes are supplemental to school.
Right.
So if you had great schools, you wouldn't need coaching classes.
Right.
So we are supplemental to school in that way. But if you look at after school, we are like a primary product. So
but would you specific to that answer, right? Would you think we can?
I mean,
this would ever move into schools? Have you ever thought of doing that?
So we won't be able to replace schools, because replacing schools will mean a lot more things, right? Certifications, licenses, all of that. And life is too short to solve for that problem right now. So, especially in India, we haven't been able to, the schools are non-profit in India, right?
Correct.
It has to be a non-profit. Technically, they're all non-profit, no matter how much
managed by a trust.
Managed by a trust.
Yes.
We haven't been able to solve for that, right? Make it for profit. Let the good entrepreneurs come. Let great entrepreneurs build good schools and deliver great quality education at a profit. We haven't been able to solve for that. So it attracts all the wrong kind of entrepreneurs. Right? Somebody who can build a trust and then charge money and then get the money out. I wouldn't do that. I don't want to do that.
No one in the right mind wants to do that.
But people
I think they use it as an avenue for all sorts of other
rent seeking and stuff like that. Basically, I guess people who are good at doing Joel. If you're good at doing Joel, you should also school.
And imagine, that's the function of your education. That's what defines where you get an education. Imagine, start a school when you have...
And your access is controlled when you were 3. And once you get into that school, you're supposed to be in that school for the next 12 years.
Wow.
And it shapes you for who you're going to be for your entire life. It's so inefficient.
Right.
So I think supplemental education is not going away anywhere.
No, of course not. So, of course not. So,
and at the same time, primary is also not going to get fixed anytime soon.
No, but would you think ever there is a way in which schools could adapt a platform like this?
Oh, yeah.
Or platforms like this?
Yeah, totally.
And change the way they teach. I'm not saying take the school out of the equation, but change the way they teach.
Totally.
Kids.
They can totally adapt. And the challenge is, will they be able to build it themselves? Maybe not, because, again, the DNA difference, right? So only tech companies will be able to build it, like product managers and engineers and designers.
Right.
But will they be able to use it? I'm pretty sure they will be able to use it. And if they start using it, the value of Topper goes down, and it will be competition. But I still wish that they use it, just for
or they overall. They use something like it, or they use your product itself.
Yeah, whatever. But I think our teaching methods can adapt.
Yeah. So what is your take on the rest of the edtech system? That's the parts which you don't personally look at in Topper or yet in Topper. What's yours?
I think in India there is a lot of demand, and we are still scratching the surface of demand because, our skilling is very low. Even in our graduation colleges, in our undergrad colleges, we learn very little. We spend 4 years, come out, we can't even write code.
Yeah.
We finished 12 years of schooling from an English medium school, we can't write a page in English.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's not true.
For a bunch of students, our skilling while we're going through these years is very, very low. So we essentially come to a job and then spend 2 years, learning on the job, and somebody's actually exploiting you because of that.
Yeah.
So I think there is a lot of self-learning opportunity available, upskilling opportunity available. So supplementary education till 12th standard, definitely yes. Even beyond 12th, there's a lot of upskilling and learning opportunity outside of classroom to skill up. But, again, it's a function of motivation.
Yeah.
But also motivation is not short because the opportunities are not that abundant in India, right? So we are still very, very far away from the world average GDP. Forget first world average GDP.
No, so upskilling is a need.
Yeah,
we understand that it's an economic need. It's a personal need for most people to be relevant in society.
Yeah.
But from an entrepreneur's point of view, from the ecosystem point of view, people who are attacking this in various ways. There's the route you're taking, the testing and learning methodology. There is putting a simple tech layer on top of the coaching classes there. What else have you seen? Have you seen some interesting movements in this space which are, or overall in the education sector?
So overall, I think one of the most exciting part is the online degrees, right? So a lot of people are doing the short courses,
the MOOCs as we call them.
The 3-month courses, right up to 1.5 year degree courses, right? So you get an online MBA.
Yes.
It's a proper degree given by a university, but your entire course is online. And you pay like a full fee. It's like a 3 to 5 lakh rupee fee, full MBA.
Yeah.
And given the real estate, given campuses, given moving to a different city to get an MBA, all these are really, really attractive options for getting an MBA now.
Yeah,
so we're seeing a lot of that. There's a lot of upskilling happening, upgrad and others, through 3-month, 6-month courses, again certified courses, Simply Learn.
Oh yes, of course.
Upgrad. So
more job specific.
So kind of learning analytics, learning ML, learning SEO. I don't know. There are hundreds of options.
Yeah. So all of this is feeding into the whole.
Yeah. All of this is feeding into e-learning, right? So different age groups, different needs, different price points for customers, different lifetime values also for businesses.
Right.
But I think the core underlying factor is online distribution of course.
Right. What's your take on the competition in this sector also?
I think competition is good. And without competition, there is no sector.
Of course.
I think if there are another 4 or 5 companies solving the same problem, then we know that we have a good shot at making it big.
Right. And that's starting to happen. I think the attention the sector is getting is now.
Yeah.
Obviously 2015 got a lot of attention, but now I think the renewed faith in folks like yourself and the rest of the ecosystem.
Purely from a business point of view, this is like a great sector because the average order values for an internet product are very high. As an internet product, our average order values are probably like 3 or 4 times Flipkart on an annual basis.
Wow. On
an LTV basis also, we have a very long LTV, 8 years, renewals are very high. So you just keep renewing every year.
Right.
So all those make it
8 years out and then back for another 15.
No, and I actually remember a friend of mine who ran coaching classes and did a proper coaching classes business at some point. Said the best part of this is also it's cash advance. It's
cash advance.
Most people basically pay upfront for a course they will take over the rest
At
of the year.
Topper also, people pay upfront for 1 year, sometimes 2 or 3 years also, right?
Yeah.
So you pay like a 75,000 rupee fee for 3 years upfront.
Yeah.
And keep using it for the next 3 years.
Nice.
So it's a negative working capital business.
Exactly.
It's a very high gross margin business.
Yes. Yeah, so all of this has its, obviously, and even the VCs know it, so clearly they are cognizant of where this is going. So, no, I think, I really hope there's more and more growth in this sector, and more and more entrepreneurs jump on board to understand and solve the rest of the missing pieces, and you become more than the size of the company you are today by leaps and bounds.
Thank you.
And you still stay in Bombay. I think if we can achieve that, that's a great thing. So kudos to you and the whole Topper team.
Thank you
for doing what you guys do.
Yeah.
And on a parting note, what else do you think is...
we got to talk about Shunya One Slack channel.
Yes.
Join the Slack channel by going to ivmpodcast.com/Shunya One. There's a button over there. Click it, and we will invite you to join the channel. And the other thing is the reviews. Please send us, please make reviews for us, or give ratings, or whatever it is. Wherever you listen to the show, iTunes, Savan, TuneIn, Stitcher, wherever you're listening to the show, just kind of give us a review or a rating. Thanks.
Yep. All right. Thanks so much for being
Thanks
here,
for having
Zishaan.
me over. Yeah.
Yes. And as I mentioned earlier, you can reach Zishaan on @Zishaan on Twitter, or, since he mentioned it himself, his Gmail address. And but otherwise, check out topper.com. And obviously, if you're a student, we would love to hear from you as well in terms of how you find the platform, and any other questions you might have from him, where if he is available.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
you.
guys.
Thanks.
भारतीय सिने इतिहास में महिलाओं की जगह तलाशता हमारा खास हिंदी पॉडकास्ट सिनेमाया, निर्देशिकाओं की फिल्मों, कहानियों और नजरिए को समझने की हमारी एक कोशिश। मैं हूं स्वाति बख्शी, और मेरे साथ सुनिए सिनेमाया IVM पॉडकास्ट ऐप और ivmpodcast.com पर भी।
Family businesses get a bad rap. At one time, they were looked down on for getting rich, for being too ambitious. Today, they're still looked down on, but for not being ambitious enough. Not agile enough, not modern enough, too traditional in their mindset. The biggest brands and business houses in the country started out as humble family businesses. It's the way India has done business. Join Sonu Bhasin in conversation with stalwarts of Indian family businesses on the Inheritors podcast series by Bloomberg Quint. Discuss the highs and lows, the needs and pressure points of building a business legacy that spans generations.